Hello, welcome back. I'm Jim LaPierre. This is Sober Now. Today's topic is relapse prevention. Having a few technical difficulties today, so thanks for being patient and sticking with us. As always, welcome your comments and questions. Would love to hear what's going on in your recovery and always want to be a resource in your recovery. If you haven't already been over to Sober Now's Facebook page, please head over there and give it a quick like. We would love to hear your questions, your comments, and let's just jump into it. Today we're talking about relapse prevention, and I think it's often said that relapse is part of recovery, and I want to challenge that. It does not have to be. And my experience is that when it is part of a person's recovery, typically they've stopped doing a lot of the things that help them to get sober in the first place. They've stopped doing a lot of things that foster their recovery, their health and well-being. So if you are a person who has recently experienced a relapse, let's talk about what you do next, because that's the most important thing. And we can start with what not to do. Don't hide it. Expose it. Hiding it increases the chances that it's going to happen again. Don't spend time beating yourself up. Don't spend time shaming yourself. All of these types of things increase the chances of repeating a relapse. And the biggest thing is, don't say fuck it. I hear that often from folks. Say fuck me, because that's what we're doing when we put ourselves in harm's way. Don't refer to a relapse as a slip. Don't refer to it as I fucked up. Accountability is key to recovery. It's key to all of the things that we want in life, the changes that we need to make. And so what I most appreciate is when people just communicate directly. Here's where I'm at. Here's what I've chosen, and help me explore what it is that I need to do next. My suggestion is get together immediately with people who support you, people who understand addiction and support your recovery. Focus on increasing your stability and safety in the present. Don't spend time questioning, why did I make this choice? What is it that I'm going through, or what is it that I'm feeling? Let's focus on stability and safety in the present. If you find that you're spending time alone with your disease, know that that's the most dangerous place that you can be. I understand that for a lot of us, the longer we stay sober, the more our past kind of resurfaces. The expression, of course, is that the good thing about being sober is we feel more, and the bad thing about being sober is that we feel more. So, learning how to cope, learning how to be grounded in the here and now, and most importantly, learning and accepting that we are people who need people. We are folks who need to be surrounded by the kindred spirits, by people who have similar goals, and that is vital. So let's take a quick moment to look back on what are the things that you stopped doing, and what are the commitments that you're going to make going forward. We are too often prone to withdrawal, to isolation. We have some justification around being independent people, or we have the fear that we might be an imposition or a burden on others, and it's all bullshit. We need to be able to lean on people who have lived experience, both in addiction and in recovery. We need to move away from shame. We need to not be alone with our fears, and we need to give up this battle that we have with ourselves for self-control. Willpower alone will not suffice for anyone. Doing sobriety or recovery alone just is unmanageable, and the foundation of building a better life is manageability and sustainability. And we get those through accountability. We get those through setting goals and making plans for ourselves. We get that by choosing what is it that we're going to do instead of using. We get that through working a program. We get that through counseling. We get that through many different forms. Having a recovery coach, having a sponsor, having people in your life who understand the disease of addiction. And we get that by choosing to accept that it benefits others to help us. As I was thinking about everything that I think helps prevent relapse, I was reminded of a poem, I Am Your Disease. I've seen many different forms of this poem. No one knows for sure who wrote it, but it's powerful, it's succinct, and I'm going to share it with you because everything in this poem that the disease personified claims to hate is everything that we need to ensure that we don't relapse. So the poem is I Am Your Disease, and it reads, I hate meetings, I hate higher power, I hate anyone who has a program. To all who come in contact with me, I wish you death and I wish you suffering. Allow me to introduce myself. I am the disease of addiction. Cunning, baffling, and powerful, that's me. I have killed millions and I am pleased. I love to catch you with the element of surprise. I love pretending that I am your friend or your lover. I have given you comfort, have I not? Wasn't I there when you were lonely, when you wanted to die? Didn't you call on me? I was there. I love to make you hurt. I love to make you cry, and better yet, I love that when I make you so numb you can neither hurt nor cry. You can't feel a damn thing. This is me in my true glory. I will give you instant gratification, and all I ask of you is a life full of suffering. I've been there for you always. When things were going right in your life, you invited me. You said you didn't deserve these good things, and I was the only one who agreed with you. Together we are able to destroy all the good things in your life. People don't take me seriously. They take a stroke seriously. They take heart attacks seriously, even diabetes. Fools that you are, you don't know that without help these things would not be made possible. I am such a hated disease, and yet I do not come uninvited. You chose to have me. So many have chosen me over reality and peace. More than you can ever hate me, I hate every single one of you, especially those of you who have 12-step programs. Your programs, your meetings, your higher power, all weaken me, and I cannot function in the manner I am accustomed to. For now I must lie quietly. You don't see me, but I am here, growing bigger and stronger than ever. When you only exist, I can live. When you live, I can only exist. But here I am, and until we meet again, I wish you death, and I wish you suffering. I've seen 100 different variations of that poem, but my experience is that they are all accurate. They all describe the insidious nature of the disease of substance use disorder. And again, to be alone with that is to be prone to having, it's akin to being alone with a monster. And so I think progressively what happens as in active addiction and when we're struggling in recovery is that it gets harder and harder to discern what's me and what's my disease. So I want to talk about some strategies that prevent relapse, but I want to underscore again that the most important pieces are accountability, fellowship, surrounding yourself with kindred spirits, having plans ahead of time for what you'll do when you experience the compulsion or the urge to use, and having people in your life who actively support you. No one works recovery alone. There are folks who manage to get sober alone. They typically are what we refer to as dry. They have not changed their lives outside of abstinence, and they are typically relatively miserable people. The idea of recovery, of course, is to create a life that's so good that you wouldn't want to mess it up with drugs or alcohol. So the first strategy that I want to explore with you is an acronym, HOW. Honesty, openness, and willingness. And it's an expression that my friends in 12-step programs use. It is an answer to the question, how do I stay sober? And the answer is, I embrace how. Honesty, openness, willingness. If I can allow myself to be open and honest with people that support my recovery, then I can have accountability, I can have support, and I can have people helping me sort out where am I at, what is it I need to do next. And this is a safeguard against becoming overwhelmed. This is a pragmatic approach to not battling alone. It requires a certain amount of humility and vulnerability, but I caution folks because we tend to view ourselves and any change that we might make as going from one extreme to the other. And so we don't have to pour our hearts out. We don't have to tell people every terrible thing we've ever done. We just need to be able to share with people, here's where I'm at today. Please help me get past this. Please help me stay true to my goals and help me to maintain my sobriety. I think one of the biggest relapse prevention strategies that doesn't get talked about enough is the importance of learning how to have fun in recovery, learning how to unwind and just have a fun evening without drugs or alcohol. And so we know to avoid the people, places, and things that we associate with addiction. Developing friendships and fellowship with people who are working to stay clean and sober is a vital part of how we learn to have fun, a vital part of how we learn to have healthy friendships, and it can't be overstated the degree to which this supports addiction recovery. It also gives us a way to fill any free time that we might have. I'm fond of saying there are very few things more dangerous than a person in early recovery with too much time on their hands. Loneliness is a killer. That all by itself tends to fuel the desire to use. We've already had too much experience feeling alone and forsaken. We've already had enough pain and disappointment in our lives. So if we're able to develop a circle of friends, a sober network, if you will, 12-step meetings are a great place to start that. Group therapy and other groups that support recovery can be good to start that. Every time I look on my social media accounts, I see people that I know gathered together in groups, and they make a point of identifying as being in recovery. And they do this by saying, we recover loudly so that others don't have to die silently. And I absolutely love everything about that. Having that close-knit group of friends will take you very, very far, and it will make your life more rewarding. And this is the key to creating the life that we want that prevents us from destroying it. Giving back is a phenomenal strategy that promotes relapse prevention. I always say, when you just feel like you can't get out of your own way, a surefire way to change that up is find somebody in need and go help them. Go be of service to somebody who's really struggling. That all by itself will take you out of yourself. It will help you to feel good about what you're doing with your life and your time. I think there's a lot of relapse prevention skills that are centered around coping and feeling safe in the here and now. I often talk with people about grounding skills. You've probably seen a Facebook meme at some point about pick a color and find 5 things in your environment that are that color. You've heard counselors and folks talk about mindfulness, which is really a nice word for just paying close attention to yourself. You've heard me talk about how important breathing, deep breathing is, and just noticing tension in your body and releasing it. Anything that helps you to feel more connected to yourself and more present in the here and now is going to be a safeguard against relapse. Because typically we're most at risk when we're reliving parts of our past or borrowing troubles from tomorrow. When we look ahead with anxiety and fear and we think about all of the things that could be going wrong, of course, being alone with fear is a major trigger to use. For an awful lot of us, the key to preventing relapse progressively becomes dealing with trauma, dealing with mental illness, and for a very high percentage of us, it means that gradually we're going to be overcoming past trauma and PTSD. Now, I don't ever encourage somebody who's recently relapsed to explore their past. Again, the focus has to be, let me get stability and safety in the here and now before I go digging around in my past. And again, that's why breathing skills and grounding skills and things like journaling are so important. We don't need to go through the past. We need to make sure that it's not limiting us or hurting us in the present. And so for the moment, especially in the weeks and months that follow a relapse, Making sure, again, that we're surrounding ourselves with good people, we're coping, we're dealing with things as they happen. All of those are learning how to manage the effects, the ongoing effects of past trauma, because it's normal. The longer we stay sober, the more the things that we buried resurface, the more that we find ourselves overwhelmed by emotion. And for most of us, it's a learning curve just to identify the feelings that we're having, be able to share or expose the intrusive thoughts that we're experiencing, the things that are coming out in our nightmares, all of the things that undermine our safety. I think this is an aspect in which we too often feel terminally unique. We forget that other people experience these things. Folks oftentimes aren't aware that the overwhelming majority of people that you will meet in recovery from substance use disorder are survivors of trauma, are people who are working very hard to have a greater sense of safety, to have stability, and it's progressive. We learn how to feel safe in our own bodies, we learn how to feel safe in our own minds, we learn to feel safe in our environment, and it expands outward from there. But this, too, is not something that we achieve alone. We use coping, and we use the support of people that understand us and have lived experience. Many of us find that we are dissociative. We catch ourselves kind of checking out. We lose track of time. We just feel like we're struggling to stay in our bodies and struggling to stay in the here and now. Dissociation is very common for people in early recovery, and ideally we are again using support to stay connected to the here and now, and we're involving ourselves in activities with others, whether that's work or hobbies or things that are specifically designed to promote recovery. The more that we are out there getting connected to others and working some type of program, the better everything tends to work. So I'm going to pause and just check the feeds. As always, would love to hear from you. What's going on with you today? Okay, folks are quiet today. That's all right. I think quite often when folks are really rigorously honest about their use, they may find that there is a pattern where every 3 months, every 6 months, for some people every 30 days. And I think journaling and utilizing a counselor or a sponsor allows us to spot those patterns and question what are those about. And my experience is that most often when there's a cyclical piece of relapse, that is the outer limit to what we've been able to do alone. And again, we don't want anyone to work recovery alone. We want you to have lots of support. We want you to have tons of accountability, and we want you to be setting goals and working towards them. So if you do find that there's a pattern in your recovery where you reach a certain step or you reach a certain amount of time and you find that those are the periods where you're relapsing, again, we don't have to dig too deep into why is that happening. We need to dig really deep into how am I going to prevent that from happening? What is it that I'm going to do differently? What is it that I'm going to add to my recovery to ensure that this doesn't keep happening? One of the things that I always encourage people to consider is bodywork. Bodywork can be anything from yoga to massage therapy to acupuncture, chiropractic, anything that helps you be more connected to your physical self, anything that benefits your health is a boon to recovery. There's an extraordinary amount of research that's been done showing the benefits of acupuncture, in particular to addiction recovery, huge benefits. And it's not really surprising to notice that exercise is a boon to recovery, but what might surprise you is there is a growing amount of research that shows that weightlifting is actually very helpful to recovery. And when I talk with folks who have benefited from things like yoga or things like weightlifting, it kind of makes sense to me. Those types of undertakings require that we be connected to our physical selves, because otherwise we're going to get hurt. I think sometimes with my friend artists who would say we have to be willing to go to any lengths, and she would use silly examples like if jumping on a pogo stick for 12 hours a day is what most helps you stay sober, then that is absolutely what you do. So I remind folks quite often that you can't win a battle that you have with self. I remind folks that self-will, particularly battling with self to stay sober, is not enough. It's never going to work. We need support. We need to be surrounded by people who understand addiction. We need reality checks. We need reassurance. I think if we're really super honest with ourselves, that quite often what we most want is for somebody to give us a hug and to tell us that we're going to be okay. So I'm going to be winding down shortly, but I really want to encourage you to connect with me. Jim@sobernow.com is the easiest way to get in touch with me. Questions, comments, things that you want to know about, and particularly things that you'd like to hear covered in future live streams are very much welcomed. Would love to have you check out SoberNow's YouTube channel. About 100 or so videos there, completely free, covering different aspects of addiction recovery, and would love to have you check out our site, sobernow.com. We are now a subscription site. We are more affordable than ever. For under $15 a month, you will have access to our home study programs. We have two. We have one that focuses on boosting your recovery from substance use disorder, and we have a second program for people like me who identify as affected others. For those who have a loved one in active addiction or maybe early recovery, we know, of course, that addiction affects all people, not just the person in active use. So, as always, I ask you to take excellent care of yourselves, connect with each other, and